It's a very special day, a beautiful Sunday evening, and indeed this is one program that so many people out there have been looking out for. But before I start, let me introduce myself. I am Senami Ohiamokai. You're welcome. Tonight we are having a presidential media chat with the President of Nigeria, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, GCON. Mr. President, a very good evening to you, and thank you for having us.
Thank you.
All right, I am not alone to also talk to the President, to discuss with the President. Recently, I have to my immediate left, I have Shehu Dauda. Shehu Dauda is Editor-in-Chief, Capital Post. Mr. Dauda.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for joining us this evening. Also here tonight is Musa Igbo. Musa Igbo is Editor-in-Chief, Tell Magazine.
Thank you.
My very senior colleague. It's nice to have you. Also in the house tonight is Gloria Ume Ezeke from Channels Television, my friend and partner. Gloria.
Thank you.
Also here tonight is Shola Ushukere. Shola Ushukere is the general editor, The Sun newspapers. Shola, it's nice to have you join us as well.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, thank you for hosting us. Thank you for having us here tonight. Shola said if he had the opportunity earlier, the first thing he would ask you is how hot is your seat? Because most people say the President is on the hot seat.
Thank you. It will be very hot, probably very cold. Both extremes makes it a bit uncomfortable for any human being. Of course, it's hot in the sense that whatever happens in the country, to look up to the President. And just like as I mentioned in the church today, all of us left last night thinking that by today we'll go to church to pray and thank God for the 53rd anniversary. So a few minutes after 12 midnight, about 22 students were killed in the north, in the Yobe State. You got that information maybe 10 minutes after the incident happened. Of course, I asked if you're me as the President of the country, what would you tell the parents of these young men, students? And I asked, why did they kill them? Is it ethnic cleansing? In that case, these students you killed, from which ethnic group? Is it because you don't like the face of the President? Okay, if you kill them, has the President changed? Is it political? Which political party do they belong to? Is it religious issues? Those students, which religious group they belong? Are they Christians? Are they Muslims? Or what? You can ask and ask. Or is it poverty that some people try to attribute the excesses of some of these miscreants as a result of poverty? Is it poverty? Can poor people buy AK-47 rifle? Can poor people buy ground-to-air missiles that can bring down aircrafts? Can poor people buy 30, 50 or more Hilux vehicles that is used in parading to cause havoc? Definitely not. Just like look at what happened also in Nairobi. So once you are confronted with this situation, sometimes you need courage to push ahead. But I always say that this is a very, very ephemeral challenges, but very transient. With the commitment we have, we'll get over it. Immediately after service, I had a brief meeting before coming here with the service chiefs that we need to look at different ways of handling what we are already trying. But at the time I declared the state of emergency, the crisis came down. But after some time now, they are looking at soft spots, students in hostels, places where you will not expect them to just embarrass the government. So we discussed and said, look, we must begin to do things differently. If the drum is changing, then of course the dancer has to change the steps too. So we assure Nigerians that we'll continue to do what is right for this country without compromising the interests of the ordinary people.
The security situation, Mr. President, is it responsible for the low-key? Nigeria will be 53 in a few days. Is this mood responsible for the low key?
No, the low key is not because of the security per se. If you look at the security has improved significantly. Even a place like Medigri, for over 4 years they never had Doba, but within this period they celebrated a Doba. That shows that even Maiduguri, which appears to be the center point of Boko Haram, the whole thing has come down. No, we said that we are not going to do major celebrations until 2014. So 2013 too will be low-key. The only ceremony we have, even as government, is change of guards that normally happen every Monday in State House. It's something that happens every Monday. The Brigade of Guard change command. But we always encourage people to come and witness it because of the independence. So instead of doing it on Monday, we'll just do it on Tuesday morning. That's the only ceremony we have. So, and of course the Juma prayers and the church service. So the low key is not because of security. The rest part of the country is safe enough for any celebration to go on. Even in Borno State, even in Maiduguri, in Damatoro, you can do celebrations. It's just that this is happening in some remote areas, not extremely remote, but it's outside the heavily populated area. So the low key has nothing to do with the security challenges. It's just because government doesn't want to do big celebration. And of course, government set the stage for anything to happen. The ordinary citizens will not start doing big celebrations except government give the kind of push.
Apart from the government.
But next year, it will be a big one, and you will all enjoy it.
All right, you were special. It was a special privilege to be president when Nigeria marked its 50th independence anniversary. And in a couple of days, we'll mark the 53rd anniversary. Looking back now and give your own experience as the leader of this country in the last 3 or more years, can you, in your national broadcast on Tuesday, boldly tell Nigeria that they are better off now than they were 10 years ago, 20 years ago, particularly from where your party, the PDP, assumed leadership of this country in 1999?
If you ask me whether Nigerians are better off, definitely you know Nigerians are better off. We have our challenges, no doubt about that. But in terms of improvement in our society, definitely the standard of life of Nigerians now compared to the past is better. The only thing people say, okay, before this time, when we had very few graduates, immediately you finish as a young graduate, you get employment, they give you a loan to buy a Volkswagen car or something like that. They give you a 2-bedroom flat because there were very few graduates. In fact, at independence, there were no graduates at all, very few. So even school start, those who have school start or the equivalents of the school start, we are very big people. In fact, in some countries, if you read Zambia must be free, Kenneth Kaunda, I will tell you that at independence, I don't know the number of graduates in the country. So as we are progressing, talk about the number of universities. How many universities we had at independence? How many universities we have today? Within these 3 years, like you said, I've been in charge for 3 years, few months. Within these 3 years, few months alone, I made sure that every state has a federal university. Before I took over, we have 17 states in the southern part of this country. Out of the 17 states in the southern part of the country, only 3 that doesn't have federal universities. So at least 14 had. Only the last 3 states that were created in '96, Ebonyi State, Bayelsa State, and Ekiti, that had no federal universities. In the north, out of the 19 states, only 10 had federal universities. 9 had no federal universities. And we felt that one way to emancipate people, first and foremost, is education. That is key. And I tell people that I came from a very poor background. Without education, you will not see Jonathan here. There's no reason I would have been here. But I was liberated because I had to go to school. So for you to liberate any group of human beings, whether they are from the southern creeks, the southern swamps of the Niger Delta, or the northern extreme, is education. And I felt that one thing is the basic education, which we are building more schools. Ordinarily in Nigeria, basic education, that's primary and secondary, is in the hands of first 3 years of the secondary and primary. That's basic education. It's supposed to be exclusive preserve of the states. But we're still intervening because of the challenges we have, especially in the north. But when they pass through that basic education, you must expose them to some level of tertiary education. And I said that the way to start is to make sure that every state has a federal university. And for us, we said that, okay, let us start at 12. We'll not go and build big universities like Ibadan in Suka overnight, no. But they should start in a small, in fact, I directed the Minister of Education to make sure that they don't even admit more than 400 students at a time. My advice is 250 to 300 because it's not for commercial purposes, it's federal government owned. But as we fund them gradually, they begin to expand the departments and begin to improve on the admission. But at least there should be a basis to see that every state has at least one federal degree awarded institution. And of course the state governors too, they are establishing. So if the state also establishes a federal university, that means at least 2 universities in every state. That is the only way you can emancipate. So you see the number of graduates you turn out. So in those days where you just finish and very few graduates come out and government is able to employ all of them and give them those car loans, you no longer experience those luxuries. But on the overall, the standard of living, just look at the way you communicate. Before the PDP administration, to own a telephone line, even directors in ministries had no phone. Directors. I was assistant director, I had no phone. Directors had no phone. But with the PDP administration, during the Obasanjo's time, we key into the GSM. Now my mother has a phone. So if you look at the whole thing, now we are talking about privatization of the power sector. And God willing, before the end of the first quarter of next year, when the private sector will take over, I think on Monday I'm going to release their assets to them, officially giving them their certificates on Monday in that ceremony. And God willing, before the end of the first quarter next year, power will be reasonably stable in this country. And you can see what that will do to change the economy. So when we talk generally about the living standard and the way of doing things, it has improved significantly, but we still have the challenges, no doubt about that. And every human being wants the best. And until you get the best, you'll feel that nothing is happening. But definitely for those of us who, the younger people who were not born at 1960 may not know what we are talking about. But for those of us, at least who knew about it, at least looking back, you'll agree with me that a lot has changed. And the PDP administration actually done reasonably well.
Mr. President, when you boast about universities, having universities in various states, I wonder, is it about having several universities or what the state of these universities are all about? Because at the moment, we have the big strike right now, ASU, and you seem not to be saying anything. You were a former lecturer. How come we still have crises like this when you should be putting an end to something as such?
Crises in developing countries will continue, whether at the primary school level, secondary school level, tertiary level, or even other departments of government. Those are things that you'll expect in all developing countries. Look at during Rawlings' time, there was a time that they closed down all the universities in Ghana for 1 full year. I'm not saying we're going to do that. 1 full year, that people should begin to appreciate how we get to where we are. The ASU strike is very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate, I say so, because just like you said, I've also been a part, all of us who attended schools, I've been a part of the system before I ventured into politics. Throughout this period, there's never been a time that a government on its own decided to go and take an inventory about the infrastructure we have in both the federal government universities and the state universities. But we are not pushed to do that. We felt like, look, we have schools, and we must know what is there. So we set up a team, technical team. They visited all the universities, all the hostels, including the toilets, facilities we have in the hostels, photograph, video, records. And when it was presented to the Executive Council, I said, look, this must be presented to all the governors. So I asked the Vice President during the National Economic Council meeting, because that is a body that's made up of all the governors, chaired by the Vice President. The Finance Minister is a member, the Planning Minister is a member, my Chief Economic Advisor is a member, and the CBN Governor are members. So that is a platform with which we interface with the governors and discuss certain things. So this must also be presented to that body. It was presented to that body because it covered both federal universities and state universities. We didn't go to the private universities. And we all see the enormous responsibilities we have as a nation. my vice president couldn't recognize the where he learned his architecture. I mean, his drawing. Yes. So you can see what it was. We said, no, this must change. And you cannot change this overnight. So for us now to come and go on strike and emphasize, oh, because government must do something about infrastructure. They did not tell us to do what we have done. For us to take that inventory means that we are committed to improve. And so we are starting with 200 billion and we continue to progress. We have, apart from line budgets, we also have funds from other agencies that both the Petroleum Technology Development Fund intervene in one way or the other. The Tertiary Education Fund intervene in one way or the other. We are line budget intervene in one way or the other. We said, look, we have seen the realities. We are also now doing that for polytechnics and colleges of education owned by the federal government. You cannot do that for fun. No government will want to expose himself. If I want to hide, I will not expose it. For me to do that and document, that means that we want to confront it. So we'll expect the ASU to even work with us. And so now that government has come out clearly to even identify these problems with us, I've taken inventory, photographs and video clips, I think the government is ready to make changes. So I think the emphasis from the ASU strike, and which unfortunately that ASU strike should last up to three months, is very, very long.
July, actually.
Since it's quite unfortunate because we have witnessed strikes before. Most of these strikes, government don't agree to the extent we have, even before the call of the strike. I believe, Nigeria, a lot of, if I say that, people will misunderstand me, but definitely politics has crawled into so many things we do. When you observe the way people do certain things, you have the feeling that something else is happening. We may be seeing something different. But I will use this opportunity to call on ASU that for the sake of our children, they're emphasizing on their allowance, what they call end allowance. 90-something billion, is it 90 or 97 billion?
97.
They are saying, but we say, look, these allowances are supposed to be paid from the internally generated revenue of universities. And just like I said that this, even if we solve this problem, even if we give us 100% of what they are asking for, as long as we still manage the universities the way we are managing as a developing country, further strikes will come up in one way or the other, or salary. In some countries, maybe go to the United States of America, lecturers don't receive the same amount of money. If you're a professor in one particular field, and if it's a field that very few people are experts, your price is higher, and they pay you differently than a professor in another field that probably there are more people. Until we get to that level, where the universities that claim to be autonomous will actually be autonomous in terms of funding. Here you say that, oh, the president, the minister of education has no role to play in terms of appointing a university vice chancellor. We don't play any role. They just appoint and tell us that you want to be autonomous. That means that you can employ the number of people you want and whoever you want to employ. But the money must come from somewhere. And the group that will provide the money has no role. You cannot control you. So until we get to a point where that autonomy will translate into other areas, because autonomy without responsibility is a potential for crisis, and that's what we are suffering.
Yes, sir.
Because I'm just coming there, Nessa, because if you talk about end allowance, that's supposed to come from the internal generated revenue of a university. And if the university is unable to, and we say, okay, we will help. And they are making it as a key thing that you will not call off strike because of that. It's not compulsory. We are only assisting. So I
You were
think
party to the 2009 agreement as vice president at the time.
Yes, I was
So
involved in
why
that.
is the government finding it difficult to implement right now?
No, I think there are some of the issues in the 2009 agreement that maybe because of, those who sat down to do the negotiation, probably a civil servant that maybe didn't think through well. There are certain things that they themselves know and agree that you cannot implement. How
You're
they get
part of
into the,
it.
not a part in the sense, but how can you say maybe assets of government should be transferred to universities? Universities don't have asset management companies. Government has so many assets. Federal government has so many assets. And government does not take care of universities alone. So if we transfer the assets of government, all the landed properties of governments in Lagos and other places to the universities, what of the armed forces? We are here because of people are on the road. It's not only the university.
Yes, sir. Why is it difficult to be faithful to some of those things that you agreed with?
We are faithful. If we were not,
Because that's the cost of this matter.
no. Even after that, after the so-called 2009, there have been other crises, there have been other strikes, and they called up.
Many of them stem from the 2009 agreement.
No, they are called up. So this particular issue is beyond the 2009 agreement. I don't think the issue is 2009 agreement. Because all those all the issues in the 2009 agreement we've agreed, apart from those ones that definitely talk about transferring assets of government. You just can't do that. I don't know how that gets into the so-called agreement.
Why can't we start from somewhere, at least, solving the basic problems to kickstart?
What do you think is the key problem now that has made them not to call out strike?
For instance, the issue of quality of classroom infrastructure.
That's what I've just told you.
Yes.
That's what I've just told you. That to talk about infrastructure, it's not right for them to say that is the key thing, because I'm telling you that the government was not forced into that. Sorry. The government was not forced into that. But we on our own decided to set a team to go and take inventory of this infrastructure. So they should not capitalize on it. Even if you have all the money in the world now, you cannot change these things overnight. And we're going to go back, we are releasing 100 billion to start with. And let us progress. That is extra, outside the line budgeting. And I'm just telling you that we have set up a different team also to take an inventory of the infrastructure we have in the colleges of education and polytechnics. This is the first time we are pushing this with a very serious commitment. Just like we talk about road infrastructure in the country, we have not reached where we want to go. But you will agree with me that there are significant improvements. Even with the floods of 2012, December 2012, people move easy on our roads, especially those who travel home on Christmas. That people normally stay on the road sometimes and sleep there. We never experienced that. We still have our challenges, but you have seen the commitment of government. You have seen it.
Mr. President, quite a number of tweets are coming in to us, and most of them asking the same question, which is on ASUU. We all know the problems. You've stated some of them, but the crux of the matter still remains that students are being at home for the last 3 months, and from what you've said, it seems said that they will be at home for much longer. How do you intend to, put an end to this deadlock and get students back to classes?
The members of ASUU are people. They are own people. They are brothers and sisters, our friends. They should look at the country. They should look at these young men and women and the universities. And they should look at the commitment of government. And we've said, see, this is one government that has been quite transparent, and we are very, very sincere. And to me, I said that, look, my commitment is total to make changes. So, but you can't get this overnight. And if you see the sincerity in government, and even the extra thing government is doing, I've just told you about we have taken inventory. It would never happen. We'll just send money here and there. But no, before you do something very well, you must know the enormous challenges you have. This is the very first time we have gotten that document. The classrooms, the theaters, the laboratories, the libraries, the cafeteria, and so on and so forth. And so we are going to address it. Collectively, we are going to address it. So you can't insist that except we close down all the departments of government and bring all the earnings of government and solve that problem overnight, that will not go back. Then you are also not... we should all plead with ASUU to go back.
Mr. President, people are not very much concerned about ASUU because it is you that was elected. We didn't elect ASUU. So we look up to you to solve the problem of Nigerians.
I see, that's what we are saying. See, Nigeria is, because of the situation in the country, just like the first question you asked. How hot is the state? The state-owned universities, for example, Is it Mr. President that will provide infrastructure? Then you ask yourself, why should a lecturer in a state-owned university go on strike if Mr. President has done something wrong? Why? Is it done anywhere in this country, in the world? The state-owned universities are owned by the states. These are questions we must ask ourselves. And we must begin to look at our labor laws because of the excesses. There is nowhere in the world, even in the very developed society, that we all as human beings get the maximum of our expectation. It's not possible. But you must see the level of commitment of government. And so you should be able to judge, yes, if we promise that, look, give us time, we'll do this today, give us time, we'll get there. And we've seen the sincerity and you're still insisting. It becomes something else. Why should lecturers in state-owned universities go on strike if Mr. President is not doing well? In a country where we talk about a federal system, where the states are semi-autonomous components of the federal system, where the president does not control the resources of the states. Why should what happen at the center affect the universities at the state level?
You said earlier on that there's politics in all of this. I wonder what politics has got to do with it.
Well, I wouldn't comment on that.
All right, Mr.
There's politics everywhere, you know.
Everything.
Let's move a little.
I don't know.
And
Mr. President, now the shortfall in revenue allocation seems to be a big challenge to this government. Some opposition members claim that this administration, this government is bankrupt. As the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, what is the true state of the Nigerian economy?
you see, just like he asked me and talks about politics, sometimes people play politics with serious issues. Because for anybody to wake up and say Nigeria is bankrupt, how do you judge the country to be bankrupt? Bankruptcy. There must be some parameters you use. You don't just wake up from your dream or from your sleep and say Nigeria is bankrupt. Nigeria as a nation, in terms of foreign direct investment coming into Africa, more interest is in Nigeria. Just talk to your colleagues outside. In fact, I just was given the privilege to ring the New York Stock Exchange, the traditional bell ringing to close the market for that day. And of course, we had a meeting with President Obama before we left for that place. And Obama even mentioned the President of the US. For them to give you the privilege to do that, that shows that the Nigerian business environment is very viable. That is an indication. So others know what is here in this country. A capital market, more than 50% of those who are investing are non-Nigerians. If Nigeria is bankrupt, everybody will remove their money overnight. Because those people read every day the Business Time magazines and so on that talk about the finances of the world. They have experts. And anybody who talks about Nigeria being broke is just playing politics with what he's supposed not to, or saying it out of extreme ignorance. What are the issues that came up? About June or July, because of the excess vandalism of pipelines and so on. So a number of pipelines that convey crude oil to the terminals for export were closed down. So the sales dropped significantly, and it affects the revenue of the country. And for that, I think states were being owed about 75 billion or so. They also saw the reason and they agreed. And of course, last month or so, they said that until they get that, they were not going to collect the money. It's not because we never had enough money for August or for September, no. But they said that except that 74, that outstanding must be brought. I feel now it has been sorted out by the finance minister and petroleum minister. But that was the issue. It's not because we didn't earn enough money to pay. So when they walked out from FARC, of course, no money was remitted to their states. For that, they couldn't pay salaries. It does not mean that the government is broke. If government is broke, there are parameters you use in knowing. For you as a senior citizen of this country to come out and say Nigeria is broke, you must tell Nigerians what are the yardsticks you use. You don't just wake up. Okay, let us even say the federal government was unable to pay salary at the time salary is supposed to be paid. That does not automatically mean the federal government is broke. There could be some delay in some revenue arrangement. So making that kind of a statement is quite unfortunate. It's very, very unfortunate. And that's why we plead with, especially those of us who are politicians, who by the grace of God and the grace of God and the willingness of Nigerians elected us to hold some of the offices we are holding, we should be mindful about what we say, especially when you are making statements about your own country, no matter your political interest. It has nothing to do whether you like the face of Mr. President or not.
Excuse me,
You
sir.
must take your country first.
Yes, sir.
You must show that kind of patriotism.
Is it not also because of the peculiar arrangement in Nigeria where at the end of every month the state send their finance commissioners to come to Abuja, meet with the Minister of State for Finance, and in fact will tell us, bring out this what we have earned. It makes our country a laughing stock. Is there any better way of fulfilling the requirements of the Constitution of sharing revenue that accrues to the Federation account without these monthly meetings and arguments and all that? Because it does not portray our country as one that is serious. You just told Nigerians now that you know the world outside has a very favorable view about the economy of Nigeria, which is a plus for us. But what we do internally seems to convey a contrary impression.
I agree with you totally. The issue of FAC, it has been established, and if you stop it, people will raise a number of issues. I agree. Not every country has that kind of arrangement. We earn money. We know the figures. So we have revenue formula. So ordinarily, you don't need this meeting. Before, the FAC used to be rotated from state to state. Now, of course, everything is being done in Abuja. And we really see that probably it is necessary, probably it's not necessary. I think the professional can look at it. Because I feel that if a state gets what is lower than the expectation, of course, they can raise an issue. So they don't really need a gathering to do that, where people begin to move out, protest as if we're in secondary school. But these are some of the problems of developing societies that we'll have to contend with until after some time. I think most of these FAC or no factions will be sorted out.
Your Excellency, you are the Commander-in-Chief, and of course you're responsible for the nation's integrity. Why is it still difficult? The country is still battling to secure her oil from massive theft.
Not only Nigeria, but every country we have our own challenges. Unfortunately, our oil, we get it from all kinds of areas, on land, in the swamps, in the creeks, and offshore. It's easier to protect assets in the offshore, and that's why most of the oil companies, the major oil companies, they're even selling the assets onshore and moving offshore. Because of the kind of terrain, the network of pipes across the Niger Delta area, if you pass through that part of the country, you will appreciate it. And when something starts in a very small way, and if it is not checked at that point, like say clipping at the butt stage, and it grows to some level, becomes so difficult to control. Because by the time this issue of stealing of crude oil didn't start today, it started long ago. It started in a very small scale. If government as at that time had been able to clamp down on it, it would have been easier for us. But we've allowed this to stay for a very long time, to the extent that both Nigerians and non-Nigerians have invested in the business. It's a big money business. They have so much money to spend. So we are pushing, they are also pushing back. But I assure Nigerians that we are doing everything to bring it under control. So, just like we are talking about the issue of Boko Haram. Boko Haram didn't start this last 3 years. It was 2009 that Yusuf was even killed. I was the vice president in 2009. Sometimes we talk about Boko Haram as if Jonathan was the cause of Boko Haram. I was the vice president when Yusuf was killed, the so-called founder of Boko Haram. And he was there before 2009. But because it was not handled properly at the beginning, he allowed it to grow into a cancer and becomes terrible. So it's also the issue of vandalism and crude oil stealing. Over the period, we allowed it to continue to get to where we are. But I can assure you, can assure Nigerians that we'll bring it under control. It's a major challenge, but we're working day and night.
Our main worry right now is that you said this some years ago, and you're saying it right now. How positive is
it's not something. It's not something we use a magic wand to wave it off. I've told you that the level of interest from within and outside the country.
It's massive.
Yes, it's massive. But if you look at it, we are trying, and we are bringing down control. What we are trying to build a good security architecture that can confront it. You must have a superior monitoring system and intervention system, which we are building. It's not something we do with 100 billion. It's much more than that. It leaves a lot of money, but we'll get there.
Mr. President, many have argued that part of the problem of oil theft in Nigeria, where of course Nigeria loses trillions of naira to annually, is also because of the probably, if you like lackadaisical attitude of the security operatives. Some also who have been found culpable in the issue of oil theft in Nigeria, making it absolutely difficult to actually deal with this. How do you intend to tackle that from the home front before you talk about doing other things?
I've said it all. I agree with you that the approach, sometimes if things happen and you don't take the rightful action, it results in impunity. People continue to do what they want to do. And those are all the things we are tightening up. We meet very regularly now. We have different committees. Now, in fact, even the states at the level of the governors, they even form a committee to complement what the federal government is doing. I've just told you that we are changing our security architecture in terms of monitoring our pipelines and preventing the stealing of the crude oil. A lot of arrests have been made recently. It's not everything that is so advertised. People have been prosecuted. So the way we are going, we'll continue to bring it down, and definitely we'll get to the end.
The impression, sorry, some of the frustration that the public expresses over this situation is their belief, rightly or wrongly, that many of those Nigerians you just mentioned are involved in this business are highly placed people, because you have to be highly placed and connected and a lot of resources for you to be able to invest in the business of stealing crude oil. I mean, what's your reaction to that?
I agree with you. Crude oil stealing is not done by poor people, because you need a vessel to lift the crude oil across the oceans to go and sell. And if you are to sell a stolen product abroad, you also need some connection, because those refineries abroad in some countries don't take crude oil from any and anybody. And that's what we always say. Sometimes we also plead with our friends, our heads of states from outside Nigeria, from the West, US, that look, they must also check their refineries. They have to help us. There's no reason why they should accept stolen crude oil from Nigeria. So for you to sell a stolen crude oil, that means that even the country that takes this crude oil, you must have a kind of a cartel that bring this crude oil and pass through their system and make it look like a formerly imported crude oil. So it's not it's not a business that a poor man will do. So even back home, some senior people must be behind it. Definitely no doubt about that. Yes, you may see some small boys going to blow pipeline to fix holes. Those are just paid laborers. But those who are really behind it are senior people, very rich people. The best is that the poor people can just scoop little and pump a little one and go and do their local, what they call the local refineries, and get adulterated diesel that will damage engines. Well, that is the best the poor people can do. But those who export the crude oil are not poor people.
Mr. President, you attributed most of these things to politics.
No,
I'm coming to what I'm trying to build. 2015 is around the corner, and a lot of things, activities here and there are going on. And Nigerians are very keen to know, are you contesting in 2015?
See, we have laws in this country, and I, in fact, I appreciate the fact that our electoral laws tend to regulate the political activities. Before the president of Ghana died, I visited him, and I was there and I read the papers, and I noticed that was 2 years or so before the election, and the opponents were campaigning. I said, why should they start campaigning so early? And of course, they don't have restriction. From the day you are sworn in, your opponent will start campaigning, and it's so destructive because your people don't want to go and campaign. You are running the government at the same time, we want you to go in the field. I know what it takes to campaign. Nigeria is big. For you to go around this country, you spend about 1.5 months. That is if you visit just the state capitals. So the electoral law gives INEC a time frame to declare open for political parties and those who are interested in elections to begin to inform Nigeria. Because if you do it earlier, you will destabilize government. You will destabilize government. So any president, whether it's Goodluck Jonathan or any other person, as long as you still have the opportunity to contest or not to contest, if you declare it early enough, you create more problems in the system than solving problems. You will never solve problems, because if you say you are contesting or you are not contesting, you create more problems. So don't even force a president to declare his interest. It's not right. It is even against the electoral law. Definitely it's against the electoral law. No, even if it is not a sitting president, if you now go and declare that you want to be a governor of your state, we will take you to court.
No, it's not enough, sir. Sorry, sir, it's not enough.
No, you can't go and declare.
No, not
the electoral law has a time where political parties will conduct their primaries. That is the time you expect to declare your interest. Whatever you are doing is clandestine. Yeah. You can tell your friends, a lot of people have been holding meetings silently. Who has declared?
So,
what is?
Your aides, very close aides of yours and senior ones, go about mounting billboards all over the country, and nobody has stopped them.
Billboard, I've not seen. Billboard saying that I want to contest election, I will not contest election.
Of course, sir.
I've not seen. I'm hearing for the first time. I have my schedule through.
Well,
the point I'm trying to make sure is that because even in my billboards after the campaign, after the 2011 campaign, I directed that all billboards should be removed. There is no point showing president face everywhere you go. Nigerians know me appear on television almost on a daily basis. They are talking about development. They are not talking about seeing the face of the president. So I asked them to remove all the billboards for campaign. And if somebody on his own have gone to put a billboard, since I'm hearing for the first time, but when I leave here, definitely I'll ask the security operatives to find out.
We just want to understand, would you like to contest again in 2015?
It's not yet time. It's not yet time.
Your silence, you must understand what your silence is spelling. It's leaving room for a lot of negative speculations.
Speculation could be negative, could be positive.
And many people out there believe that the political activities we see around these days actually are because of whether you are contesting in 2015 or not.
I see, whether I'm contesting or not shouldn't be an issue in a normal society. If Mr. A wants to be the next president of Nigeria, whether I'm contesting or not, he will contest. My not declaring my interest does not stop me from preparing to contest. You don't need to wait until Mr. Jonathan says, I'm not contesting the election. That is when, then you are not interested. If you're interested, go and be prepared. You don't need to wait for me to say, I'm not contesting. Or you want to be you want to contest as a governor of a state now, where a sitting governor still have the opportunity to recontest. You don't need to wait for the governor to say, I'm not contesting, I'll contest. You go and prepare to contest. Or as a senator, or as a House of Rep, or even a state assembly. You need to wait. Of course, only if you look at the National Assembly, by law, a National Assembly person does not have, he can continue to contest. A parliament, by law, don't have any time limit. The people are preparing to contest Senate seats, they are preparing to contest House of Reps, they are preparing to contest state assemblies. Have those people informed them that they are not contesting? Well, so if you want to contest, you don't need to come and say Jonathan must say whether he's contesting or not. Then we are not ready.
Mr. President, was there any time you signed or entered into an agreement that we're going to
not signed agreement with anybody?
Was there a gentleman agreement that
now, if I had signed agreement, they would have shown you.
Okay, Mr. President,
If I have signed agreement with anybody, they would have shown you. And I said, look, why is a lot of people are misinforming Nigerians? I was in Addis Ababa. And that is the time I advocated for this single tenor. I said that when you look at the politics of Nigeria, especially now that the country is just developing, how long have we been in 1999 to date? Just about 14 years. It's a very young period. Politically, the country is 53 years old as an independent nation, and by January will be 100 years old as a modern Nigeria. But in terms of the political evolution, we started the First Republic, it collapsed. Second Republic lasted for a year, 3 months, collapsed. Third Republic, we didn't even conclude it. After electing governors for about 2 years, it collapsed. So this is the very first time that we have stayed up to about 14 years. So 14 years is a very, and you look at the way we go about our policy, and I said that to be more productive, probably if a president has a single tenure of 7 years, running without interference will be more productive than even the so-called 8 years. Then I mentioned when I was interfacing with people, I said that, look, if I advocate for that, people will say, oh, President, you want to serve about 4 years now with the 1 year using completing the late president's tenure. That means that you have served for 5 years. You want to go for another 7 years, single tenure. That will be 12 years. They will say, your shelf is, you don't want others to serve, you want to serve 12 years and you want others to serve only 7 years. And I said that if Nigeria agreed to that 7 years tenure, which I believe it will be more productive for the country, I may not even involve, so people will know that I'm sincere. I'm thinking more about the country.
Right.
I didn't say, oh, Jonathan is not going to contest election, not going to contest. I discussed that in the context of the single tenure that I was advocating as at that time. It was when I was interfacing with some Nigerians in Addis Ababa. But we will say that I have signed an agreement. They should show you the agreement.
Mr. President, recently you sacked 9 ministers. Now, someone just sent us this tweet. Olumide said, Mr. President, sir, can Nigerians know the reason why 9 ministers were sacked? Now, while some have applauded, the fact that you had to rejig your cabinet, some others have said that you could have done more, that maybe start from around yourself, from the presidency.
I should start myself.
No, definitely not. But people feel that, another school of thought is that there are people around you that they feel, you should have started from around you before there. So there's a bit of confusion there, whether those people were sacked because they believe that they have alliance to the G7 governors or because this is truly a cabinet reshuffle.
You see, it has nothing to do with G7 governors. If you look at it, I dropped a Minister of Defense long ago, then followed by Minister of Youth Development. Had nothing to do with G4 governors. Then recently, because if you look at even the ministers that were dropped, some of them are even from the states where percent of the governors are very close to me. What of Akwa Ibom? That minister was recommended by Governor Akpabio.
So it was said that he fell out with him. That's why he
fell out. I don't know of that. Of course, what of my Vice President Minister of Environment from Kaduna State? Did she fall out with the Vice President?
Did she?
I'm answering you.
I want to hear from you.
No, you see, in government, from time to time, it's like a football team, you see. You have your 11 players. You are the technical advisor or the coach. After some time, somebody may even be doing well. But probably you look at the way the other people are playing and you feel that probably you need to strengthen the strikers. You just remove one and put another one. If you think the pressure is on you, you need to strengthen the defense. You remove somebody. It's not that the person you are removing is not even doing well, but sometimes, for some reasons, you want to do things slightly differently to achieve better results. It's not as if you're not achieving results. So, reshuffling of cabinet, you know that's a normal business. There's no president that does not.
We know it's your prerogative.
No, the issue is not even prerogative or not. Yes, you appoint, you fire.
But the problem.
But what I'm telling you is that it's supposed not to be an issue. Why is it an issue?
Maybe
Wait. From 1999, that Obasanjo came as the president. Stayed 8 years. I worked with Yar'Adua, then Jonathan. is there any time that you don't change cabinet? Tell me. So why should Jonathan own be an issue?
So when do we expect next?
Because the Jonathan is an issue, I must say. No, let's face facts.
I think what Olumide, who sent us this tweet,
That's Olumide. Why?
Olumide is asking why were they sacked? Maybe that, you know, will boost the confidence of people. Reasons why they were sacked.
No, Olumide should be interested in how the government works, not who does it. I always tell people that Nigeria is first. And the key thing is that we are building institutions, not individuals. Yeah. So if Mr. Bottle is there and is serving Nigeria very well, and I remove Mr. Bottle and place somewhere and bring Mr. Lantern and put there, and still serving Nigeria even better, that's what Olumide should be interested. So not taxing me to justify why I remove Mr. Bottle. No, it's not right.
Mr. President, sir.
Yes.
You know,
if a minister commits offense,
yeah.
this will tell Nigerians that the minister has done this and done that. And that's why the minister should go. But if the minister does not commit offense and you just feel that you will do some replacement, as a technical advisor or a coach to a football team, you don't need to rationalize it. People could, just like even in football field, when people are changed, people do all kinds of analysis to the left, to the right, and so on. Yeah. But the person wants to score goals.
Mm-hmm. As an adjunct to Olumide's question, this is just an adjunct. You know, after the last substantive Minister of Defense left or resigned or was sacked, whichever one is applicable, people expect that given the enormous security challenges posed by Boko Haram and others, you know, you should have moved to quickly fill that position. Why
the Minister of Defense are the service chiefs. Those who handle defense issues are the 4 service chiefs. It's not Minister of Defense or Minister of Police Affairs. Who handles police? It's not Minister of Police Affairs. It's the Inspector General of Police. Who handles the armed forces are the service chiefs. There's no way you leave a gap in appointment of service chiefs. You can do away with the Minister of Defense. You can do away with the Minister of Defense. I can decide to cancel the service chiefs to report to me. But sometimes people don't really know. Sometimes people talk out of ignorance. In fact, in Ministry of Police, if you look at the last reform we have, we are yet to discuss that document. One of the recommendations is that we should not even have Minister of Police Affairs.
All right. So let's look at security issues. I'm sure, of course, you've been following reports from Kenya, for instance, where there was a 4-day siege at the Westgate Mall, which killed about 67 people. Some number of people are still missing. It turned out from reports earlier today that the Kenyan authorities had been warned that this was going to happen. Back home here, now Nigerians are worried. There's a palpable fear, tension in the air. Shoppers are afraid to go to shopping mall. They're not sure how secure their lives are. So, what exactly can Nigerians expect? Earlier, you also talked about over 20 students who were shot dead in their sleep in Yobe State just last night. These people are worried, they are afraid. What are you going to tell Nigerians right now about the security situation and how they should handle it?
Because that is why I even started this conversation from the security perspective. If you look at the excesses of Boko Haram, yes, Boko Haram has been there before I even came here as a vice president. Yes, when I was the vice president in 2009, there was a major confrontation that led to the killing of Yusuf. And of course, some senior police officers were killed and so on and so forth. But the excesses started with the bombing of this, is it Mami Market or what they call it? After that, the UN building was bombed in Abuja. Mami Market in Abuja. UN building was bombed in Abuja. Then the police headquarters was also bombed in Abuja. As at that time, we never had the security architecture to really monitor and confront it. People who were terrified, even to go out was a problem. But we quickly build up capacity in all aspects. And if you will agree with me, within this period, you've never heard of bombings in Abuja again. I'm not God. I cannot say it will never happen. But what I can promise Nigerians is that within the limits of human competencies that we have built, we'll make sure that we don't get to that situation. That I can promise that we will try our best.
And
People are not
outside,
sleeping.
and outside Abuja,
Of course,
Mr.
I'm
President?
just, of course, also outside. I mentioned to you that even in Borno State, if you talk about Maiduguri and Damaturu, the main state capitals, the security is higher. But some of these communities in the forest areas, it's quite challenging. Nigeria is a very big country. But we are doing our best. I told you that even immediately after service today, because of what happened in Yobe, I had a little security council meeting even before coming here. And they will be, even as we are talking now, I asked them to meet and see how they must change tactics, if there's some new things to be done and so on, to make sure that these embarrassing attacks are brought under control. So that I can say, but one thing about criminal activities all over the world is that what we are working, they are also working. No country is safe. As sophisticated as, of course, some of these bigger countries, they have their issues, they have their challenges. So no president in this world, I wake up and tell you that I don't expect any criminal activity in my country. It's not possible, except we are claiming the powers of God.
Mr. President, you said earlier that the security chiefs answered to you that there have been several meetings. You declared the state of emergencies in Adamawa, Yobe, and Maiduguri. Now, all of this, the tension was eased for some time. Now, there's been series of attacks again in the last 3 weeks, as against the calm that had been experienced.
Of course, that's one of the reasons we had to meet. I agree with you that after this state of emergency, there was major confrontation. They calmed down a little, but now issues are coming up again. So we need to focus. We need to do things differently. I told you exactly. And I've asked the relevant actors to do what is right. I cannot say more than that. Security issues are not the issues you advertise, but we'll be working harder.
So what is the biggest problem, biggest challenge facing your government in this campaign against against terrorism? And also the second one, which is also related, an incident happened there in Abuja about 1.5 weeks ago in Gudu district. 10 Nigerians were killed. There are various fashions, stories about what exactly happened. I'm sure you have information. Can you tell Nigerians what actually happened, sir?
I don't have to tell Nigerians that, because the security services have already told you. If I now begin to explain, you start comparing what I have said with what I have said. But I've told you, and you should believe, I've been briefed about that. People have made confessional statements. You see, that's why I'm saying that sometimes some of the people who come to call for probe or this and that, and you begin to wonder whether those people meant well for this country. Because people have confessed. And I always say that, look, when there are confrontation between security operatives and criminals, in a place where people live, maybe 1 or 2 people who may not be a criminal may be affected. Then here, maybe some innocent people probably may be affected because of the actions of fire. But definitely, there were Boko Haram elements. And if you monitor the global trend, of course, there was this feeling about the Al-Qaeda network, which, of course, most of these criminal gangs, we call them self-terrorists, have all kinds of linkages. The Boko Haram has linkages with the hacking from the North Africa, and of course, they also have the linkages with Al-Qaeda, they have the linkages with Al-Shabaab. They have their network across the world. Criminal gangs like drug gangs have their network. And the feeling is that in September, they were going to bomb so many cities across the world to commemorate the 9/11. And it has happened in other parts of the country. Of course, what happened in Nairobi is even being linked up to that. And people attempted to also bomb Abuja. No, I mean, within this September period. And people, some of the people that were arrested confessed. And what we were told, In fact, they were leading the security services to where they suspected that arms were kept, only for people to open fire on them. Of course, they have to return. During that process, some people were arrested. Some people died in the process. People confessed. So assuming one or two innocent persons, because it is all these uncompleted buildings, so all kinds of people who ad hoc workers who have no place to stay, squat around. I cannot say clearly that probably know all the people who died, that all of them are Boko Haram, but definitely there were Boko Haram elements who had confrontation with the security people. So people coming to make some provocative statements, you even begin to ask whether they meant well for this country.
Well, Nigerians want to know, sorry to cut you, how much you have curbed this insecurity challenge.
That is what we are talking.
I'm coming there. When you said earlier that Boko Haram members have permeated your government, do you still stand by that thought?
You see, I said that Boko Haram members are also in some aspects of the government. Yes, I said that. It was discussed. But if you follow the recent trends, you should know that even, for example, recently something happened in Nasarawa State, where a police officer sold information to a criminal gang. Even in the north, there are cases, some soldiers have been court-martialed for leaking information, betraying their people. Of course, in Borno State, some senators were, a senator was being prosecuted. It's a government functionary. A judge from Kano State has to be retired. So when I say that, it's not as if the whole government is infiltrated by Boko Haram. But there's an example in the judiciary, there's an example in the National Assembly, of course there's a lot of examples in the security services, the level of betrayals.
Let's talk about something that makes you smile all the time. You always talk about with passion. That's the power sector, because you know, even your opponents will agree that it's one of your major accomplishments of your government. You just informed Nigerians now that by Monday, the private companies that bought the generating companies and distribution companies will be giving their certificates of ownership formally. So in other words, there have been giant strikes in that sector. The question some people are asking is that why is the government applying this selective privatization thing? Because the greatest challenge we have, and we have talked about it at several fora, is the huge deficit in infrastructure development. Why does the government prefer, for instance, to award multi-billion-dollar road contracts, whereas if you create the enabling environment, the right legislation, and the proper channels for commercial dispute resolution, a lot of private money will come into that sector. Especially because the Nigerian youth population gives us a special advantage in terms of foreign direct investment. I used to have just said that Nigeria is the leading country in Africa. What is the challenge, particularly in this aspect?
Thank you. But when we talk about selective privatization, it's not selective per se. The privatization process started long ago. You know, we're almost finished privatizing major government assets. But you cannot privatize everything the same day. Even the issue of the power sector privatization, what mooted long ago, we are only consummating it. So you cannot. If you talk about the road infrastructure, as I say, you see, changes everywhere in the world are resisted by people. Nigerians initially had some toll gates over roads, but after some time, all those toll gates were removed because the money was not really going to government. A lot of, because we couldn't design our toll gates and monitor it with modern electronic systems like it's done everywhere where money goes to the rightful place. So Nigerians were paying, roads were not being maintained because government was not getting any money to maintain the roads, so it was useless. Over the period, Nigerians are used to driving on free roads. So if you want to introduce toll gates, you have to do it gradually. You will not start by building toll gates across all the roads. In the first place, people will feel that the road is even very bad. Why are you putting a toll gate? So we say, first of all, do the road before you tax us. When you do the road, we will pay. So say that even we will start tolling some of the roads that we believe, especially the very busy roads, very commercially viable. But first and foremost, you should first of all provide the facility, provide the road. Gradually, you begin to introduce the tolling so that you begin to toll the major roads. But if you start one day to say you are tolling all your roads, but if you bring private sector into it, the private sector must deal with it. It must get the money. It's not, they are not running charity organizations. So even before you hand over the roads to the private sector, you have to do it gradually, and you cannot start with all your major truck roads. If you do that, it will be like the subsidy issue. There will be riots in Lagos. Yeah, please.
All right, Mr. President, you also did mention the power sector. Let's come back to that. Now, over time, in 2011, we heard that the power sector would have been able to generate 4,000 megawatts. That target and that projection was moved, was changed. Today, we're still talking the same thing. Where does your government stand in, revamping the power sector?
My sister, thank you. We're not talking about 4,000 megawatts or 5,000 megawatts. Definitely not. We're not talking about megawatts. If I tell you about megawatts, I'll even tell you that maybe from now, starting from the week we're entering up to the first quarter of next month, most of these NIPP generating stations are ready for commissioning. I'll be commissioning them and you'll be listening to the speeches we'll make so you can aggregate all. But we are not too keen about telling Nigerians megawatts. Nigerians don't want to hear about megawatts. Megawatts is not the issue. Because even if you generate and you don't have the capacity to evacuate, then you have done nothing. So, and our transmission infrastructure will be quite weak. We are strengthening, as at the time we are talking about megawatts, we couldn't even have transmitted more than 5,500 megawatts. But we are taking the whole chain. And with the privatization of the GENCOs and the DISCOs, using Manitoba to manage our transmission infrastructure, we will be able to provide power to Nigerians. So our target is how do we stabilize power? How many hours of the day do people living in Lagos have power? How many hours of the day people living in Abuja, Port Harcourt, and so on, Kano, Maiduguri, Yobe, and so on have power? That is our interest. It's not to declare I'm generating 5,000, generating 8. Even if you say you're generating 15,000 and the people don't see the power, well, what have you done? So that is our interest. And I've just told you that now that we've completed the first phase of this privatization, before the end of the first quarter of next year, transitional phase everywhere is a problematic period. When you are moving from public ownership to private ownership, we will have issues, no doubt about that. So I expect some issues, but we'll try as much as we can to reduce some of these issues so that it will be relatively smooth. But by the time we get over it completely, it will just boom, and you will not even, maybe by after the next media chat, before the time we ask
Shehu has a question.
Mr. President, we seem to be on the power sector still. We seem to be concentrating, the government seems to be concentrating only on thermal and hydro. Why are we not exploring wind and solar energy in this country?
Yes, every country you want to use green energy, wind energy, wave energy, solar energy. We are using solar energy a lot. If you travel across, you will see a lot of street lights from solar. But the solar technology is still limited. That's why all over the world, people still use thermal, either using gas, which is cheaper, or use crude oil straight. Sometimes, of course, we are also going to coal, use of coal. The hydro, hydro is the renewable source of energy. In fact, hydro is the ultimate. All the countries that have hydro are blessed, have enough hydro power, is blessed, because hydro, if you build a dam, it's costly to build a dam. But the minute you finish building the dam, it's almost a very low cost to maintain the turbines. And the water has its own annual cycle. Rains must fall every year. So water must constantly enter your dams and drive your turbines. But we don't have enough of hydro. Yes, you can see that on paper. If you aggregate all the small hydro potentials, from 1 megawatt, 2 megawatt, 5 megawatts across the country, you can aggregate so much. But building a dam for this 1 megawatt, 5 megawatt is huge sums of money, and they are spread across. But these countries that have major dams, which we don't have, we don't even have one dam that can give us 1,000 megawatts, 500, 700. While places like Brazil, one dam alone is giving about 10,000 megawatts. So, so if you have hydro, which is a renewable source of energy, that is the ultimate. Gas is hydrocarbon. It's a wasting asset. One day the gas will finish. Even if it is coal, it's also hydrocarbon. One day the coal will also finish. Nigeria, we are not even the good things that we are not exploiting our coal deposits now yet, but now we're also going into that. It's one area that we're also facing, to use coal, to use the gas, to use the hydro. But issue of solar, the technology is improving every day. I remember when I was a deputy governor in Bayelsa State, when we installed our solar lights. In the evening, you love it. It's bright. By 5 a.m. when you come out, they're gone. Because the batteries couldn't store enough power to carry those street lights the whole night. So by 4 a.m., 5 a.m., when you go out, everywhere is in darkness because of it. But the technology has improved significantly.
The cost of governance. The trend all over the world is bringing down the size of government, reducing cost of running government. But sorry, Mr. President, in Nigeria, we found out that we have a kind of duplicity in appointments. You have a minister has a senior special advisor, he has a special advisor, he has special assistant, the special assistant has a special assistant, and all, and so on and so forth. What are you doing about this? Because it's part of the problem.
You see, when we talk about cost of running government, we are doing very well in terms of that. Even in terms of our parastatals, recently we did a review. Wanted to shrink them more than we did, but after reviewing properly, we still allow some to stay. But sometimes people complain so much about political appointees, as if that is the greatest problem we have in running the government. And when you aggregate, I say, what is the total salary of the political appointees? It's not that much as people seem to. But if you want to run government as you run a modern business, you will even have more problems. Because this is even a country where we have a number of people who are not fully employed. If I remember when I was undergraduate, and that time some lecturers claimed that they were socialists and capitalists and all kinds of a thing, and the lecturer was raising the issue, why should a government go and use bulldozers and all these heavy land-moving machines to construct road? Why not go and employ all the people and use them to construct the road? And you're just imagining, if you just go and use people to construct roads, how can they ram the soil? What kind of a truck will move on that kind of a road? It's like earth roads that used to be built by those good days that the communities built earth roads and use sticks to hit the earth, because it thinks that theoretically, as a socialist, it thinks that we create just for people. So you must balance. It's not the number, because if, for example, you're a minister, for you to function, you need people that are competent that will help you. All over the world, you need people that are competent that will help you. Sometimes, whenever I travel, you know, a number of, especially some news, the social media people, they will publish the president of Nigeria travel with 100 people or so. Because Nigerians, whenever, even as I go for the UN, there are a number of businessmen because of the business forum. They say that all these people are being sponsored by the government. Government don't sponsor people. And even in Africa, I travel with almost the least number of people. There's some of my colleagues. I don't want to mention a country, Recently, we went to that country for a bilateral meeting. And the agreement was that if we are going there, they will take care of us. If they will come here, they will take care of them. Normally, they used to take care of the president and few of their aides alone. But that agreement was arranged. But by the time they came, the number of people I was I read, but we already entered into agreement. Even me, in terms of resources, they say Nigeria is one of the rich African countries. But in terms of the people that travel, much less than what some of my counterparts do. So sometimes these things, people don't compare notes. People don't compare. They just feel that, well, why should the minister have this kid, have that? For you to function as a president, you need a number of people that will do a lot of jobs. And that's why if you go to some countries, and I always say that, if you build strong institutions, even if the president is sick, there are some countries, especially those countries where the presidents are life presidents. Even if the president is sick, for 1 month you will not even know. The system runs. Because every aspect of government is manned by an officer of government that will do his work. So it's not this SSC and SC that is a problem of this country. Definitely not.
But sir, you set up this team alongside...
Yeah, that has to do with the parastatals.
Okay.
That has to do with parastatals, not aides of president or aides of vice president or aides of minister or aides of governor. That's not the problem of this country. Definitely not. But the issue of the parastatals has a lot of overhead and of course capital. So if there are parastatals that are doing their operations are quite close, we feel that they can come together so that you save some of the overheads. But also that has also an issue, because when I really wanted to do that, the people in labor were a bit apprehensive, because if you retrench people, you have also increased the labor market. After all, they will tell you that there are some countries that even pay people who don't even go to work. So why should you want to retrench people that are even working? So these are the ways you will balance. Yes, of course, we don't have the social, how do you call it, what happened in the UK and others. Social security system where people get minimum pay. In fact, I even asked the Minister of Planning then, Dr. Samsudin, there is no more with us. Look, let us see. Let us aggregate. Let us really look. Well, everybody talks about unemployment. Yes, but yes, the Bureau of Statistics may have their own figures based on their method of estimation. But let us take an inventory. How many unemployed people or extremely underemployed people? So many Nigerians are employed, but not to the optimum. Maybe a young graduate is supposed to earn X amount of money, is earning X minus Y amount. So it's an underemployment. But those who are not employed at all, how many? And let us also focus into our own areas where we want to create more jobs. The union programs, the micropreneurs programs, and other products we have to create jobs for our youth. And see the segment that will remain and find out whether it's possible for us to pay any little amount to, and how do we go about that. So we're even working on that. The report is not yet ready because we must see the figures before you can make any kind of commitment as a president. Otherwise, you go and put yourself into the ASU strike, and they will say that the president agreed to do this and he has refused to do it.
Mr. President, well, in spite of the fact that President Obama, actually praised our business terrain and applauded many other things, well, the real problem the international community has against us is corruption. Now they say it seems it's business as usual here, and even some critics at home say that there's not much to suggest that you're winning the war. Are you really winning this war?
You see, when we talk about corruption, the Transparency International talks about corruption. I like the word they use, corruption perception index. Perception is different from real, but perception is critical. And that is why I think they always quote this Adolf Hitler. They always quote him, I don't know how true that statement is, that if you say the wrong thing 1,000 times, it becomes the truth. So if every Nigerian journalist...
propaganda minister,
is the one who says so?
The propaganda minister of Hitler.
Okay. So if every journalist who wants to talk say that the problem of Nigeria is corruption, if every member of civil society who wants to say something say the problem of Nigeria is corruption, if all our priests, whether Christians or Muslims, who wants to talk either wedding ceremony or birthday ceremony or burial talks about corruption. The feeling is that corruption is #1 problem. And my sister, look, we have done some local programs here. There was a time, because of the constitutional amendment, we interfaced with civil society. Yeah, we invited, I don't know whether any of you covered that program. We invited civil society people, and we discussed various things about this country. And any option, any key team, we now give option. Is it finance? Is it government competence? There's various parameters, including corruption, that made us to be where we are, or where we are not getting to where. You didn't see that none of the parameters that corruption was #1, not even #2. That is, even among the civil society people, if you call any of them and say, what is the greater problem of this country? There's corruption. But then when we break them down and ask various options, you get the stem and the detractors, and you ask, some of them will get up to 4 detractors and ask, including corruption. Some corruption will come fourth, some corruption will come third. I can't even remember any that corruption came second. I think the coordinating minister of the economy and finance minister just told me, I think when we were in the US, about a study from the World Bank about the issues, the challenges of doing business in Nigeria. And I think corruption was the third. They asked business people who are doing business in Nigeria, what is the greatest problem in Nigeria?
What was the first and second, Mr. President?
Maybe if you leave, we ask the finance minister. But I know one of the key things is access to finance. That's one of the key things, access to finance. I think infrastructure. I think issues of, first, I think access to finance came, infrastructure is also there, especially power and so on. And corruption may be either third or fourth. I'm not saying it's not there. Please don't misquote me. I'm not saying we don't have issues of corruption, but that is not our #1 problem. And what are we doing? Winning the war, corruption is as old as human race. I remember, but I will not go to that. I remember when as a deputy governor of, maybe I would have given one of the pamphlets, I wrote about corruption. I spoke on corruption in Abuja here. Then you see that corruption is almost in everywhere. But so issue of winning the war, people sometimes take common stealing as corruption. A thief is a thief. When you steal money, you're a thief. But what we are doing is to make sure that you don't expose public money for anybody to steal. We have done that in the agri sector, this issue of fertilizer procurement. That's one another area where billions of naira were wasted every year in terms of federal government buying fertilizer. The fertilizer was not even getting to the farmers. Even the one that would get to the farmers used to be adulterated with sand. We have stopped that using the electronic wallet. So issue of seeds, issue of other inputs like chemicals for herbicides or insecticides and so on, and seeds. There's nothing like corruption. So there's no money for you to steal again. We started also in the petroleum sector, though later the National Assembly took it and rolled all kinds of probe or no probe. But even before the National Assembly talks about probe, already we worked on it. In fact, the deregulation was to completely get out of that. But Nigerians will pay a little more, and people resisted it. But of course, we tried a little. So there you have removed the corruption network. I would have eliminated it completely. That's why sometimes people say, oh, I remember somebody say, oh, no, those who are involved in petroleum subsidy, they are those who funded Jonathan election. If they funded my election and I want them to fund my election again, will I want to remove subsidy? I want to maintain it, continue with it, so that they will continue to fund my election, or whoever I want to vote for.
Right.
So what I'm saying is that we are interested in making sure that there's no free money for you to steal. But in terms of winning the war, this is the first time I said that, look, we have a legal system that we borrow from the English law. I'm not a lawyer, but what I was told is that it's better for 10 criminals to get away than for one innocent man to be punished. That is the law. So if you go to court, they say you have to prove something beyond reasonable doubt. And if you have a smart lawyer, somebody will steal billions and hire the best lawyers.
And get away with
it. So I set up a meeting. I said, look, everybody talks about corruption in Nigeria. The courts must help, because these matters are going to court. And until people are convicted, we will continue to, if you steal 1 billion, and you can use 100 million to get yourself out of trouble, you can is it 900? So you continue to do it. But if I'm coming, but if you steal money and get into trouble, then you know. So I set up a committee where myself, the vice president, the head of the executive, including the agencies that handle corruption issues, ICPC, FCC, then the Senate President, the Speaker, the Parliament, and the Chief Justice of the Federation, President of the Appeal Court, and among the 6 geopolitical zones, we take one Chief Judge of a state, and we'll be meeting regularly to see how the judiciary, the legislature, and the executive can come and handle this so-called corruption every day. But the perception is high. It's not because there is no corruption. Yes, there is corruption. But we see corruption in wedding ceremonies, corruption, burial ceremonies, corruption. Yeah, everything is corruption. But by the time you gather these people and you isolate issues and you ask different questions and you ask them, they themselves to prioritize, sometimes the corruption will come. Taking the World Bank studies, it's not Nigerians that ask them to do. Because of this perception that is so high. Why is corruption, if you call the perception is so high, and the businesses are still rushing to Nigeria? And they were wondering, so they wanted to know why. And I believe as at the time they asked that study to be done, they thought that corruption would be in about 1. But they were surprised that corruption was either 3rd or 4th.
There's a perception in the war against corruption, and that is that the big boys, those who have fat purses and can steal big, naturally have enough money to hire sons to fight their ways, you know. That's exactly they get away with it. And buy judges. Now, the problem is that the campaign against corruption seems to be skewed against the poor. Somebody goes with a knife, steals 10 naira, you charge him to court, he goes in for as long as possible in prison, and somebody steals billion and is walking the streets free. That's a bigger problem.
That's why I'm saying that is why I initiated this meeting. Because as a president, you cannot gag the judiciary. If you do that, the country will be in danger. You must allow the judiciary to be independent. Of course, here the Constitution makes it very clear. The Parliament, they are independent. Here is the separation of powers in Nigeria is almost total. There are some countries where there's a lot of presidential influence on the judiciary. But when you do that, yes, it will help you in solving some problems, like we're talking about corruption now. But the day that Mr. President will dictate to the judges the kind of judgment they will give, even if we solve that corruption problem, because we are all committed to solving that problem. But I have so many other issues that it will backfire. First and foremost, the president is the politician. So whether directly or indirectly, if the president has those kind of powers over the judiciary, it will affect the country in one way or the other. So I will not also advocate that the president should control the judiciary. But the meeting is to make sure that they on their own begin to see the best way to do it. And to some extent, you know, this is the very first time that a number of judges have been disciplined. But nobody talks about that. In Nigeria, you hardly hear about a judge being sanctioned. It used to happen once in the blue moon. But now it's more regular. The National Judicial Commission, really their petitions, they are sanctioning a number of judges. They're giving judgments that cannot justify. And nobody praises it. When government is doing well, they suppress it. Anything negative is blown out of proportion. But they are trying. And I believe if they continue the way they are going, even some of the so-called big people who are taking big money, they will pay for it.
See, what was about corruption?
No, just before we go ahead, let's quickly take some tweets because this media chat was publicized and Nigerians were asked to send in their questions. So if we can just quickly take a few messages from Nigerians out there. This one is coming from Noah Olatunde, and Noah Olatunde is saying that agree that Boko Haram has international scope. How about Ombatsi caught in Nasarawa and Jos crisis? Maybe we should answer that first, then we'll go to the next one.
Yes, of course, whether by the Nasarawa State, the Plateau crisis of whether there's ethnic rivalry, or whether you have the Niger Delta militants, or what in the southwest, in the southeast, all parts of this country we have issues. We have issues. The only thing is that the issues have different dimensions. The issue of Boko Haram becomes worrisome is because of the terrorist tactics they are using. This issue of suicide bombing. This issue of you not even coming out to say, I am this, and these are my problems. And I'm from the Niger Delta. We're able to address that situation. Because when you call the leaders, they will appear, and you interface with them. And so you reason together, and you'll be able to solve the problem. But the issue of the Boko Haram, you invite people, nobody come. People felt, oh, we must dialogue with Boko Haram, or we should give Boko Haram amnesty. We set up a committee to interface, the dialogue committee. Up to this time, they are still dialoguing. They are not, they can't, because they don't come to discuss with them. So that is the problem we have, or the key difference between the Boko Haram. If you take the Plateau crisis, you see more of ethnic rivalry, ownership of land. Who owns land here? Who controls the kingdom? Is it the Beron people, or the group they call settlers? Do we even need to have settlers in Nigeria? These are the issues. So you can deal with, you can have some reasonable control. Whether they call somebody a settler or not, they are living there. When there is crisis, you know those who are involved. But that of Boko Haram is different. What happened in Nasarawa State, of course, is quite worrisome. Of course, recently you know what happened between the security services, especially the army, and then, fortunately, a number of people died. I always say, whether it's a criminal, whether it's a Boko Haram or a cult leader that dies in Nigeria. My duty as a president is to make sure that these people change and live a decent life, not killing anybody. So anybody that dies, whether it's a Boko Haram person, whether it's a cult leader or whatever, I feel pain because a Nigerian that has died. So the issues are, even if you go to the Nasarawa area, see some kind of ethnic rivalry is also there. The people are not ghosts. They have some identity, and that is why we're also talking to their leaders.
Okay. Mr. President, Tony Balogu says, sir, if campaign is a crime at this time, why should Asari double statement concerning your 2015 victory be disregarded?
Well, when you now quote people, you find I cannot speak for people. It's quite unfortunate. Sometimes when I read even the papers, people talk to the left and talk to the right. Somebody make a statement, somebody react. But that is the problem I have. Whatever anybody says, negative or positive, it's on me.
All right.
But I believe, and I still say that, it is very wrong for anybody to talk about whether anybody should contest the election or not, especially at the level of a governor of a state or a president of a country. It destabilizes the system. I just told you the example I had in Ghana. At that time, it was not an issue here. And we were all worried when before the late president died, John Atamis. And we discussed it. I said it's quite unfortunate. And I told him that in Nigeria it's slightly better because we will not be allowed to do open campaign until a critical period before the election where INEC will now clear the door for everybody to campaign. So that time it was not an issue whether Jonathan was to contest or not. It is not the best, whether it's Jonathan that is here or anybody. We must make sure that elections, whether the president will contest or not, there should be a critical period before the election that it should be good. I've been involved in election from 1999 till now. 8 years in Bayelsa State, of course 8 years at the center here. So I know what I'm talking about. When I was to contest vice presidency, I was the governor of Bayelsa State from 12 December 2005 to December 2006 when I was now. So I governed the state for 1 year. We were moving, we were progressing, and I was happy. Bayelsans were happy. But when I was really running mate to Yaradua, from that December convention, I was now asked to, and the campaign started. I did not know, the state was in trouble. I was always in Abuja traveling, and in fact, it is not the best. So any period of campaign, both the governor, both the president and their team, everybody thinks about the campaign. The whole administration, the whole development issues are kept behind. So it's not good to start too early. And the media people, you should always condemn people who want presidents or governors to declare too early. In fact, I'm giving you that assignment.
Mr. President, you want speculations to go on, however negative or positive?
I mean, but speculation is a part of life. We always speculate. So allow those who speculate to speculate. But a declaration, I'm saying it with all seriousness, I'm not playing politics with it. Yeah. If today you want to contest as a senator, you know somebody is there. You don't need to wait until that senator says, I'm not contesting, before you prepare. As long as you're interested in contesting, you should be preparing. You don't need to go and ask Mr. A, please tell me whether you are going back.
Mr. President, Oyema Kono Charles wants to know, he says, Mr. President, is Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau dead? If yes, why didn't Nigerians see his body?
I don't know whether he's dead or alive. I don't know whether he's dead or alive. I don't know him, I've not seen him. And I don't know whether he's dead or he's alive.
The security
has clear information on most of I, as the president, this is not talking about speculation. Everything is based on speculation. But you monitor, if it's unfortunate, if the Boko Haram leader was the person who was talking very regularly, then if he stopped talking for some time, then we could begin to speculate. But even when he was leading, he was not somebody who talks so much. You know, journalists will even know more than us, because you know how to. You know, some of you always talk to them.
Are you saying we're Boko Haram?
Some journalists always talk to Boko Haram and report about them.
Mr. President, why is
Sorry, let's not respond to that. You know, as journalists, we talk to everybody. That's our job.
Mr. President, your Federal Executive Council is a massive contract awarding outfit. How do we say to that?
Of course, what?
You stopped it before.
No.
Now it has come back.
What? I don't understand what you mean by the Federal Executive
Because
Council.
we have tenders board. That one is virtually dead.
No, the tenders boards, you have different levels of tenders boards. At the ministerial level, you have tenders boards. What in practice at the center, even as at the time we took over, is that for major contracts, beyond the ministerial tenders board, the ministry still handles it, but it will take the endorsement of the Federal Executive Council. I know why it has to take the endorsement of the Federal Executive Council, and which I believe is the best thing to do, is that the Constitution of Nigeria states that every state must have a minister. It's unfortunate or fortunate, and that's why the Nigerian cabinet is fairly big, because every state must have a cabinet minister. So when a minister, let us say a minister of works, have contracts to award, the other ministers from across the country will also have their idea about how you spread these projects. And from discussion in the council, they say that sometimes the minister himself may not be so informed about a particular thing, but the minister from that state knows. So when it is being discussed, we listen to the ministers from the state who will give you detailed information about that, and it helps us to take a decision. So there's absolutely nothing wrong in the Federal Executive Council approving contracts. But it's not the only thing the Federal Executive Council do. We discuss policy issues, and we are not sidelining other responsibility of the Federal Executive Council. No. If we are sidelining that at the expense of contract award, then you say, why are you leaving your main assignment and you are doing the one that is supposed not to be a co-assignment? But I tell you that if you take, some people are trying to drag it through whatever means, and say that the Federal Executive Council should not know anything about contract, it's not right. Some people even feel the president should not even know about contract award. So maybe you sit as the president of the country, like rightly said, if anything happens to someone head, then you want to award a contract of $1 billion, president should not even know. Somebody somewhere, one director will award a contract of $1 billion. The next thing there are problems, it is the president that journalists like you will ask, Mr. President. Mr. President, why should this thing happen? How will I answer?
Mr. President, Mary was in the middle of a sentence before we...
Yes, I'm just wondering now, Nigerians, of course, talking about the cabinet, Nigerians point a lot of fingers at the petroleum industry, and when they talk about corruption, that is what comes to the forefront. And of course, we want to know, are you satisfied with what's going on in the Ministry of Petroleum?
If you talk about Ministry of Petroleum, it's just sometimes, just like I said, that when we appoint service chiefs, I just sympathize with them because it's a glorious office. As a military officer, you want to be a service chief, that's the ultimate. But the day you leave, of course, they are courageous people, they are trained to be so, and they know what to happen, so they don't show any sentiment. But income comes from petroleum. So everybody's eyes is on petroleum. And whenever you are heading a sector where the eyes of everybody, all those who want oil blocks and have not gotten the oil blocks, all those who want oil management fields have not gotten management fields, all those who want to lift oil and cannot lift oil, all those who want to get products and so on, everybody is on you. Whether you go to the left, you go to the right, people will criticize committee to say they are probing or not probing. We did a number of in-house things, and we are still doing it now. So most of these stories you hear, just like we talked about the issues of corruption, are based on perception. Nobody has sat down to do proper analysis. And I always tell people that it's not what you think that is right. Society is not based on somebody's imagination. And somebody the other day was telling me that, I think it was during Babagiza's time, when somebody I love so much, late Taisolarin, raised one alarm. What was the subject matter about? So it was now called and asked, how did you get the information? So you had it from in Molwe. Is it what you had in Molwe that you now write? Because you've written it in a paper, a well-known paper. It becomes like a concrete story. But you had it from Molwe, and you now, with your experience as a journalist, as somebody who people have respect for, you now write a beautiful story out of it. So it's your story that people are now relying on, not the gossips in Molwe. And when it was asked, you had it in the Molwe. It's also, we are saying that some of these stories people are telling, like the Molwe stories. People don't come with concrete. Even when after the issues of the House of Rep, we set up a team. The last thing was headed by, I think, Ike Moko, the Access Bank MD and so on. We did forensic analysis. Initially, what the impression we are giving is that we are even going to get up to 400 billion. And my answer, I read, if we get 400 billion, what we can do with 400 billion? At the end of the day, the recoveries were quite insignificant compared to what was speculated and what was rumored. But in terms of what we pay for subsidies, have dropped significantly because of the subsidy, because we moved from 65 to 97. So while we are paying almost 2 trillion or thereabout a subsidy, now we are paying a little less than 1 trillion. It's not because of that probe per se. If we did not if we did not reduce the subsidy, we would still have been paying almost the same amount. So at the end of the day, it's like the whole proof that we were almost shaking this country as if the whole country wanted to collapse. At the end of the day, the gains would have been insignificant compared to even the so-called issues raised. So you are here, so you appreciate some of this a little more than somebody who just reads from the papers. I'm not saying there is no corruption in the oil sector. The oil sector is, the whole economy of this country is on the oil sector. There are all kinds of things may be happening, but the way people are looking at it may not be exactly the way, and we are still looking at it. Even recently, we have now asked another audit group to also look into issues of revenue in the oil sector.
Just quickly, sir, are you pleased with the way the PIB bill is being pushed in the National Assembly, because it seems to be doing at a very slow pace, given the significance of that bill relative to the petroleum sector, especially the reforms we are talking about?
Mr. President, in addition to that, just as we round up to go, Nigeria is celebrating its 53rd anniversary on Tuesday, 1st of October. The composer of Nigeria's national anthem, Pa Bernard Diasi, is passed on. The designer of the Nigerian flag, I think his name is Taiwo Akikumi, is still living, but is living in abject poverty. As Nigeria celebrates, what do you do with some of Nigeria's heroes that are still living? And what do you say to Nigerians as they celebrate 53rd anniversary?
Yeah, thank you. First, you talked about the PIB. Of course, PIB is before the National Assembly, and they are patriotic Nigerians, and I believe they will do the best. I don't want to make too much of comment on that because it's outside us, the executive. It is with another arm of government. But I will use this opportunity to again congratulate Nigerians for our 53rd anniversary. We have ups and downs, we have our challenges as a nation, but definitely we'll get to where we want to go. Other nations that get to where they are pass through challenges too. It has never been an easy ride for any nation. I remember if you read this book written by this Singaporean leader, that from third to the first, you see that when he started his reforms, he said that he was even being stoned by people. It was as bad as that because of the initial pains. But now they enjoy. So Nigeria will get to where we want to go. We will not get to that level where they will stone president anyway, whether it's Jonathan or another president. But we'll get to where we want to go. And for these great men, you know that this government is one government that really appreciate the contributions of our leaders. You remember when we celebrated the 50th independence, we selected 50 Nigerians and gave them special presidential award. In fact, we want to gazette it and get it in a way that you can use just like you use the GCFR, GCN, MFR, and so on. So also that one you can use it after your name. What I told the Attorney General to do that. So that is a honor given to you by the President, Commander-in-Chief that you can put. We are also doing that for 100 Nigerians, dead or alive, for the centenary. In the national honors, the law that establishes the national honors don't make provision for posthumous awards. So if you are dead, you cannot be given national honors. But this special award, you could be given. And for this person who is still alive, it's good you have reminded us. Yeah, my Minister of Information is also listening to this program. So we'll see what we can do. But I also call well-meaning Nigerians also, because Nigerians are very charitable people. Yes. A number of us have NGOs that assist people. Such people should be helped by all of us.
Obviously isn't enough to talk about all the challenges Nigeria has faced with and all of the progresses that Nigeria has made in the last 53 years. But we'd like to thank you very, very much, Mr. President, for giving us this platform to ask our questions, and also thank Nigerians out there who did send in their tweets. There were hundreds of them, and our sincere apologies for our inability to be able to take all of your messages, but we put them in context and we're able to ask the President some of those questions. Again, we'll be joined by the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, popularly called Gej. His president is yes, it's popularly called Gej, G-E-J. So now you know. And of course, I haven't been alone. I've been joined by my very admirable friends and colleagues and senior partners as well. To my immediate right, Shehu Dauda is the Editor-in-Chief, Capital Post. Thank you so much, Madam Dauda, for joining us. Also, we had Musa Igiebo, Editor-in-Chief, Tel Magazine. Mr. Igiebo, thank you also. Also, Gloria Ume Ezeoke, Channel Television.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gloria, for your time. Not forgetting, of course, Shola Oshunke, General Editor, The Sun.
Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen out there, you've been watching the Presidential Media Chat. Thank you so much and have a lovely evening.
Thank you. Congratulations.